It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. Welcome to Thursday. Gary, how are you?
Well, I'm doing good because I figured out something.
What'd you figure out?
I figured out why I get irritated. Why I get irritated?
Is there just one reason?
Over certain issues.
Oh.
Well, no, this is just the one that I was focusing on yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, oh, okay, I see why I get irritated.
Mm-hmm.
And this was on Time Magazine's Person of the Year.
Yeah.
All right?
Mm-hmm.
Where Taylor Swift won it.
Mm-hmm.
And then going through social media and seeing the completely ignorant, 99% of the responses completely ignorant. Congratulations, she deserved it.
Did they officially change it to Newsmaker of the Year? Because that was the thought. They were going to change it and quit calling it Person of the Year. But I don't think they did that yet.
They still call it Person of the Year, but
Yeah.
the fact is, the Person of the Year, the definition is the person who has affected the world news more than anybody else.
Yeah.
That is not Taylor Swift.
No.
People are idiots. They have no idea. And then the fights that were going on. She deserved it because she's got great songs. I'm like, the Person of the Year, by the definition of it, is not an award. It's not a Grammy Award.
Yeah.
And I finally realized why I get irritated, and it's not just because of the ignorance and the idiocy out there, where people are completely clueless, yet extremely have a very bragging, arrogant mindset, and they have no clue as to what they're talking about. It's that the arguments are always the same.
Yeah.
And I think finally, after 4 decades in the media, it's like I'm dealing with the same dumb arguments and the same ignorant arguments over. And I'm just using that as an example. I'm just using as the one example.
Right. There are many examples.
Right. There's many examples, but that's just the one that got me yesterday. So, okay, that's why. That's what frustrates me. It's the same old dumb argument that, the arguments that are either based on ignorance, stupidity, and maybe a combination of throwing in arrogance and narcissism in there at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like, it was unbelievable. Well, I thought this person had a better album than Taylor Swift. Like, oh my God, we're so far off what Time Magazine's Person of the Year is. That's why, and by the way, it's newsworthy. I made sure I checked it before I commented. I go, did they change it? Did it become a Grammy Award? Did I miss something in the last year? No. It's the person who has affected the news the most.
Yeah. Yeah,
And that's-
Newsmaker of the Year.
Right, Newsmaker of the Year. That's not Taylor Swift.
No. And it also wasn't the Hollywood Strikers, and that they were in consideration for the final. They were in the final running down to the final 5 or whatever it is. No.
So that's what upsets me.
Yeah. Idiots. Morons and nitwits.
As we have said, almost every year it should be the President of the United States, because nobody affects the news more than the President of the United States.
Well, tell me what issue right now on the table that isn't the effects or results of the doings of the current president.
Yeah.
So if any year where the sitting president deserves it, it's this year.
Because of the destabilization in the Middle East, someone might say, well, the leaders of Hamas. But then it's like, yeah, but who enabled the leaders of Hamas?
Right.
By ensuring that Iran has as much money as possible to support them. Right back to Biden.
Inflation.
Because
Biden.
Newsmaker of the Year, how many times, and I think this will be my 35th time since I've been in talk radio 35 years. Well, this would be, I'm into my 35th year. So this is the 35th time I've had to say this over and over again. Time Magazine's Person of the Year is not an award.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you've had people that are bad people that have been, and then people go crazy. Well, they shouldn't get it. They were completely negative. Yeah, but the thing is not an award. It's about who was the biggest newsmaker of the year. Certainly wasn't Taylor Swift worldwide.
Well, I don't know how Time doesn't wake up from it and go, look, and the rumor was pretty strong they were going to change it to Newsmaker of the Year. And don't call it Person of the Year, because that's not accurate either. Call it Newsmaker of the Year. Top headline getter. Anything else but Person of the Year.
Yeah.
Because that's associated with other types of awards that are actual awards.
And she, granted, the headlines have been there since she's been, dating Kelsey over the last month and a half. But certainly she is at Newsmaker of the Year. But again, it's not even that. It's not even judging that. It's that people are completely clueless. And the more ignorant people are of a particular situation, the more boisterous they are in their opinion on social media.
And this is how the Democrats still win elections.
Yeah.
The ignorant masses that don't care. And they could. They have a device in their hand or close by that would allow them to find the truth in just a few seconds.
I mean, it was just like, well, I think she does some excellent pop songs, and she provided water to people in her audience when it was so hot. So she deserves it. It's like, what? How am I dealing with this?
Yeah. Yeah, I would unfriend those people right away. Bye. I got to go.
And so there you go. I mean, there's why I get so upset, because that's been the same thing for 35. It's never changed. Mm-hmm. And the more information that we get and the more access we have to news, the worse it gets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's how Democrats still win elections.
And I'm not kidding you. 99%. I didn't see anybody who said, doesn't anybody know what Person of the Year is? It's not an award. It's been the person who affects the news of the world more, the most newsworthy in the world.
Mm-hmm. It's not Taylor Swift, not even close.
No. Not even in the ballpark. Now, and it's who affects it negatively or positively.
Mm-hmm. However, the story is angled, it's headline maker of the year.
Yes. It's like,
and there's no way you can get away from the not even 6 degrees of separation with Joe Biden and all the issues on the table. It's 1 degree of separation.
Yeah.
And so there's no way it shouldn't be Joe Biden. It should have been Joe Biden, period, because everything right now, everything on the table is connected to him.
Yeah, everything that we see today. Inflation. Think about that. The inflation.
The border.
The inflation problem, the border problem, the Hamas problem, the Middle East problem.
Yeah.
Everything you can connect the dots right back to Joe Biden.
Yep.
And by the way, he would be called the Person of the Year not because of the positive things he has done, but the absolute insane negative things that he has promoted.
Mm-hmm. Newsmaker of the Year.
So, and I know it's going to be the same next year. It won't matter.
Yeah, unless they change it finally.
How come? Well, Carrie Underwood should have got it this year if Taylor Swift got it last year, don't you think? Because I think her songs are better than blah, 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 blah. Shut up!
Yeah, I would totally unfriend those people. I got to go, man. Sorry. I don't like you now. It's not me. It's you.
Thank you, George Costanza.
Yeah. Got to go.
So that's just my besides all the other news out there yesterday. And by the way, people, Republicans, calm down.
Over
the debate. It means nothing.
Oh, yeah.
Jeez. Yeah. Good God. Well, I thought, well, great point there.
Well, I will say I know who won the debate. In fact, this person swept all 4 debates. Donald Trump.
Well, the one point is the fact that you had finally they went after, except really Ramaswamy. The other 3 went after Trump. That hadn't happened. You really didn't see that.
I guess, when you're on your way out, you just take that Hail Mary of a pass, but it's not going to do anything. You and I were talking, and we've said this on the air, but in the pre-show meeting, there is no shaking the base of Donald Trump. If Donald Trump came out tomorrow and said, you know what, I've reconsidered, I'm not running,
he'd still win.
99.9% of the people that right now are saying they would vote for him would write him in as a candidate. They would do everything to vote for him. Yeah. That's not going to change. There's nothing that's going to change that.
I would disagree with that.
Uh-huh. I wouldn't.
Yeah, I don't believe that.
In fact, I said it. I guess that's why I wouldn't disagree with it. and those,
I would respectively disagree.
You're not going to shake his base. Yeah. It's not going to happen. There's nothing that's going to change that. Either health reasons or him just saying, I'm not going to run. That's the only thing that's going to change between now and convention. He's going to be the nominee.
Oh, I believe so, too. Now, I did see this, though. I did see the Trafalgar in Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
And DeSantis is only down by 23.
Yeah. Wow. He's
and remember, if just trying to give anybody who's out there going, I don't want it to be Trump. Remember, I think it was John Kasich I forgot what year it was. He seemed to run every year. I forgot who it was. No, it wasn't me.
Was it 2008?
But was down at this time. Was down 23 points, or was had like 3% and ended up with 25. Mm-hmm. So he moved between now and Iowa 23 points in that
yeah.
In that time span.
DeSantis very well could take Iowa. But you go back to 2016 and Ted Cruz taking Iowa. I really do wonder on the inside of the Trump campaign how worried they are. I pointed out that DeSantis has visited all 99 counties in Iowa. That's a Chuck Grassley move. Grassley does that. He makes it a point. What they call it in the article, going full Grassley, because he visits all of the counties in his state. And DeSantis did that. Trump, at that point, had only visited 3 counties in Iowa. 3.
Yeah, they say the ground game for DeSantis in Iowa is just dominating over anybody else.
And I don't. So my question has been: does the Trump campaign see that as the prize? I mean, we've always said run like you're 20 points behind, and that means state by state, including the primary. And we'll see where it lands. Or do they see it and say, well, we're not going to spend our campaign money on that because we're so far ahead. We don't believe DeSantis will be able to pull from behind. So I don't know. It's one or the other. And, there's the difference, too, is that you start getting into the other state polls. Once you get beyond New Hampshire, then you're talking about moving into the South and South Carolina. Then you're talking about getting closer to March 5th, which is Florida. And other states, of course, Super Tuesday, but it is right there for a sitting governor of Florida, DeSantis. Do you want to lose your home state as a sitting governor? And that decision has to be made. I think he'll stay in through Iowa. He may stay in through Super Tuesday. I don't know. He's got money to stay in. He and Nikki Haley are fine on money. Those two will be staying in for a while. I don't know if Nikki Haley You and I talked off the air. I think we brought it up on the air at some point, whether she would accept, if offered, a Veep seat on the Trump ticket. I don't know. I have no clue. She may see it as the prize, saying, okay, I'm not going to get the nomination this time, but certainly in 28, when Trump is done, I could run there. But do you want the baggage that comes with another 4 years of Trump politically, or you want to walk away and come back clean? I don't know. But they'll both, DeSantis and Haley will have a decision to make between now and the convention.
Right. You have DeSantis and Haley. I mean, it's been well written about, their campaign strategy, what they have on the ground and everything else. I haven't seen any analysis on Trump's campaign.
No. Not a lot comes out of it.
I've seen except the fact that a significant portion of his donations are going for his legal fees.
Yeah.
And is that his campaign?
Well, it could be.
Is that
if it's all about the indictments and that's working for him, right?
Yep. 866-90 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Cold temperatures and water can lead to only one outcome, and ice has no place in a truck's air system. That's why you must keep your air system moisture-free as the temperatures begin to drop. A simple step toward keeping your air system moisture-free is manually draining the air tanks. You should drain your air tanks more frequently if your vehicle has a high air demand. Moisture that is not removed by the dryer must be manually drained from the tanks. Pay attention to how much water and contaminants drain out. Too much water indicates the air dryer isn't working properly, and too much oil may indicate that the air compressor is worn. Make sure your air system is in top condition before plunging temperatures put it to the test.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Coming up on the bottom of the hour, we'll have some audio from the debate last night. Interesting, we'll also have the audio of Joe Biden being asked that question.
Yeah.
Why hanging around and communicating with your son's business partners? It's a lie. It's a lie. It's a lie. This is why they don't want him to do a press conference, because that was not a press conference. A reporter screamed out a question. He couldn't help answering. What I thought was interesting, where he said, no comment, but he had to on it. And it's an outright lie. I mean, it was as gaslighting as you can get. Everybody knows now, because the emails exist, and we know that the evidence exists. He was communicating. It's almost as if in his mind he's going back to a year ago, what he was using as a defense.
No, it's a good point, which he really does a lot. He kind of goes back to the past for answers and repeats answers based on issues of the past. But here's what you pointed out at first. This is why they don't want him in front of the press. This is why you don't want him within shouting distance. Send him out the back door. Don't let him anywhere near the press, because that's what will happen. And the more this thing heats up with Hunter and the GOP, the more he's just going to be dying to talk about it. I guarantee you, he wants to step in front of a podium and go after the GOP and just sit there and talk to the media. This is all lies and blah, 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 blah. His ego is driving him to talk about it. He wants to talk about it, but you shouldn't let him talk to the press at all.
Giving you 70% each night. Eric Harley and Gary McNamara on Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. Listen when and where you want if you can't listen live overnight. All right, some audio from last night's debate.
I look at my watch now. We're 17 minutes into this debate, and except for your little speech in the beginning, we've had these three acting as if the race is between the four of us. The fifth guy, who doesn't have the guts to show up and stand here, he's the one who, as you just put it, is way ahead in the polls. And yet, I've got these three guys who are all seemingly to compete with, Voldemort, he who shall not be named. They don't want to talk about it.
You seem to be saying Donald Trump is no longer mentally fit to be president. Is that what you think?
Look, he is showing Father Time is undefeated. The idea that we're going to put someone up there that's almost 80 and there's going to be no effects from that, we all know that that's not true. And so we have an opportunity to do a next generation of leaders and really be able to move this country forward. We also need a president that can serve 2 terms. I don't think Donald Trump, I think I don't think he'd be able to get elected. The Democrats want him to be the nominee. We see that. They are going to turn the screws the minute, if he got the nomination,
but do you think he's
you're going to see it.
fit?
Why doesn't he just answer the question? The question was very direct. Is he fit to be president or isn't he? The rest of the speech is interesting, but completely non-responsive. Is he fit?
You have your thing.
Is he fit or isn't he? No, I don't have my thing. He's the thing. Is he fit or isn't he? You're talking about him being 80 years old.
It doesn't mean that somebody couldn't get elected. That's up to the people to decide.
Ron, is he fit or isn't he?
She's been very weak on China. Now, here's the problem. The rhetoric is different, but her donors, these Wall Street liberal donors, they make money in China. They are not going to let her be tough on China, and she will cave to the donors. She will not stand up for you.
15 seconds, Ambassador.
First of all, he's mad because those Wall Street donors used to support him, and now they support me.
I mean, Nick, if you can't tell the difference between where Israel is and the U.S. is on a map, I can have my 3-year-old son show you the difference.
He has insulted Nikki Haley's basic intelligence, not her positions, her basic intelligence. She doesn't know regions. She wouldn't be able to find something on a map that his 3-year-old could find. Look, if you want to disagree on issues, that's fine. And Nikki and I disagree on some issues. What we don't disagree on is this is a smart, accomplished woman, and you should stop insulting her.
At the first debate, she said that only a woman can get this job done. That's what she said. After the third debate, when I criticized Ronna McDaniel after 5 failed years of leadership of this party and criticized Nikki for her corrupt foreign dealings as a military contractor, she said that I have a woman problem. Nikki, I don't have a woman problem. You have a corruption problem. And I think that that's what people need to know. Nikki is corrupt.
I want to get to the WWE portion of the debate last night.
Yeah.
Ramaswamy and Christie going at it over Ukraine. Here we go. And foreign policy in general.
His reasonable peace deal in Ukraine, he made it clear. Give them all the land they've already stolen. Promise Putin you'll never put Ukraine in Russia, and then trust Putin not to have a relationship with China. Let me tell you something. That's no
That's
reasonable.
not my deal. That's not my deal,
yes,
Chris.
it's exactly what you
I'll
said.
describe my
You do
deal
this
to
at
you.
every debate.
I'll tell you exactly what it is.
Don't interrupt
I'll
me.
tell
I
what the
didn't
deal is.
interrupt you. Okay? You
Tell
say
them
this.
about how you
You
want to
do
send our
this.
kids to die.
You
Go
do
for
this
it.
at every debate. You go out on the stump and you say something. All of us see it on video. We confront you on the debate stage. You say you didn't say it, and then you back away. And I want to
I'll
say
tell you
one.
exactly
No,
what I said, Chris.
I'm not done yet.
Well, this
now
is
look.
Hold
this is
on.
nonsense. This man is spewing. This man is spewing nonsense.
Let me tell you something. This is the fourth debate.
Now, I want to ask a question.
Okay.
Was that Republican crowd cheering for Christie?
I was confused about that, too. I don't know what they were cheering.
Neither do I. I'm not. I don't.
I don't know what they were
didn't.
cheering.
I didn't hear anything that Ramaswamy said. That's actually what I'm like. Am I in a bizarro world? Is this a Republican primary audience that is probably much more pro-Trump, which means completely and totally anti-Christie, cheering Chris Christie?
Yeah,
I didn't know.
I still don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Let's continue here.
The fourth debate that you would be voted in the first 20 minutes as the most obnoxious blowhard in America. So shut up for a little while.
I'm going to respond to that.
Chris, your version
We're going to let you respond to that. We're going to let you respond to that.
I'll take
Let him
that.
finish.
I want to say something else. we're now 25 minutes into this debate, and he has insulted Nikki Haley's basic intelligence, not her positions, her basic intelligence. She doesn't know regions. She wouldn't be able to find something on a map that his 3-year-old could find. Look, if you want to disagree on issues, that's fine. And Nikki and I disagree on some issues. But I'll tell you this, I've known her for 12 years, which is longer than he's even started to vote in a Republican primary. And while we disagree about some issues and we disagree about who should be president of the United States, what we don't disagree on is this is a smart, accomplished woman, and you should stop insulting her.
So I'm going to take this several times over. So first of all, I think we just learned something from Chris Christie. We learned three things right there. First of all, Chris Christie also doesn't know what provinces in eastern Ukraine he actually wants us to fight for. Chris, your version of foreign policy experience was closing a bridge from New Jersey to New York. Yeah. So do everybody a favor, just walk yourself off that stage, enjoy a nice meal, and get the hell out of this race. When it comes to Nikki, I think if you're going to actually send your sons and daughters to go die in somebody else's war, you better, excuse me, Chris, I'm speaking, and I'm not done yet.
I haven't heard the time when you aren't
and we're going to be
speaking.
done. So listen up to this, is if these people want to send your sons and daughters to go die in Ukraine, they've been arguing for it for a year. $200 billion of our taxpayer money sent over. Neither of them could even name for you the provinces that they actually want to protect. And this is the people who have been touting their so-called foreign policy experience. It is intellectual fraud. These people are lying to you, the same people who told you about weapons and mass destruction in Iraq. To justify that invasion, didn't know the first thing about it, yet they sent thousands of our sons and daughters to go die. The same people who told you the same in Afghanistan, where the Taliban is still in charge 20 years later. $7 trillion of our national debt due to these toxic neocons. You can put lipstick on a Dick Cheney, it is still a fascist neocon.
Thank you,
you got
Mr.
to see that
Ramaswamy.
today.
Thank you, Mr.
It's Dick
Ramaswamy.
Cheney all over again in this party.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
There you go.
Well, Chris Christie was getting some applause, so I learned one thing from that audio cut. It was clearly an open bar. For several hours before the debate started. Because he was getting, applause. Ramaswamy, when he went after him, got some booze, and not the aforementioned type of booze. They were drunk. It's the only logical answer. That was heavy applause for a Chris Christie. By the way, that's there was no pun intended there. I wish I had thought of that clever pun, but no. That was heavy applause for Chris Christie. That was not the proper amount of applause. Disproportionate amount of applause for Chris Christie. Especially on that type of, because what you just heard, as you rightly put it, that was the WWE going back and forth and just taking jabs at each other. So either the audience was drunk or they don't care anymore and they saw this debate as, hey, come on, just get out there and take some jabs.
Yeah.
Come on, that's what we want to see. We want to see the train wreck. Let's go.
What is never talked about by in the debates by Republicans and even Ramaswamy, because I think he's talking the wrong argument. It doesn't matter whether you know the different sections of Ukraine. The entire goal of the United States has to be to block the Soviet Union, Russia where you can. Russia is not our friend. Mm-hmm. The entire. I find it interesting. He was bringing up fascist neocon to describe what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't make any sense when he says that you can disagree with what we have done, but you cannot disagree number one, for throwing Iraq and Afghanistan, which are two different animals, into the same mix with Ramaswamy. And that's the problem I have with Ramaswamy. He really doesn't make to me any coherent sense on foreign policy. It's simply don't get involved in anything. Sorry. You can't do that in foreign policy. You will have to confront China. You'll have to confront Russia. You're going to have to confront Islamic radicalism by saying that, we were involved in Afghanistan, because he's making the point that being involved in Afghanistan was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I view the fact that, I don't know where he comes from his opinion. Certainly, he doesn't know the history, or he's ignoring the history of Islamic jihadism and what their goal is, and the fact that we're going to have to continually fight it, which means you're going to have to spend money doing it from the federal government, because that's the federal government's major role.
Yeah.
That's what they're supposed to be involved in, is protecting the United States, not everything else that they're involved in. And so Ramaswamy, to me, comes across as a populist isolationist who never fully explains why his opinions of what we should have done in Afghanistan are morally correct or not in the best interest of the United States. And he combines it, and that's the danger when he combines everything into one and then throws out the fascist.
Yeah, the blanket policy, basically.
And then throws out the fascist neocon.
Yeah.
You can disagree with Dick Cheney, and Dick Cheney probably is not held in as high esteem because of his daughter now and the things that he, said, because Dick Cheney, when he was in the House, would have never, ever agreed with what his daughter did, joining the January 6th committee.
Right.
Would have never agreed with that. And the fact that he did shows how, it was either I think of family over policy. But there's no way you can defend, as we have brought up many, many times, what Liz Cheney did by joining the Democrats, and her calling herself a conservative, but not allowing, in that case, in the January 6th committee, cross-examination of the witnesses and the evidence is absolutely against every conservative principle you could imagine. Anything else she says is worth crap because of that.
Yeah,
because you have to sit there and say, look, I either believe in the Constitution or I don't. And I believe in fairness or I don't, in whether it's a political judging system or a criminal judging system.
Yeah.
And so, but for him to use the term fascist neocon for Afghanistan and even Iraq doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't even, it's not even the argument that you're making.
Well, and, speaking of going back to old playbooks like we were with Biden, it's something he was pulling out of an old political playbook. I don't know, trying to appeal to the libertarian. I don't know.
I don't know either.
But that term would come back to haunt you in the event that Ramaswamy were to become president, which is not going to happen this time around, at least. And you're going to, because as you mentioned, you're going to have to deal with China. You're going to have to deal with the threat right now of a growing, in fact, in Afghanistan, a growing super terrorist state. That's exactly what's going on. We already know. There's already evidence of that happening. And then you add to it Hamas, Iran. And we haven't even brought up North Korea. China and the Muslim extremists, the jihadists, the terrorists of the world, that's probably a left-hand, right-hand balance that you're going to have to deal with both in the not too distant future, whoever the president is. And North Korea is also there, so whatever they do, you're going to have to deal with them.
Maybe if I sat down with Ramaswamy, he would make sense if you went point by point what he thought we should do. But using that term fascist neocon, either he got off his game because Christie was yelling at him, or because that didn't even make sense.
Right.
Using that label made no sense at all. Right. 866-90-RED-I.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-I.
It's Friday Radio. He's Eric Hurley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I like this headline in National Review. What did we learn from the debates? We'll get to some of that. Wow, some of the backtracking from those college presidents.
Yeah.
Well, what we meant was, I was confused.
What? Huh? What?
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Hurley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Every time I look down at the date at the bottom right-hand corner of my computer, December 7th.
Yeah.
It's
a date that still today lives in infamy.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when I was in Hawaii, when I worked for our great affiliate, KXL in Portland, Oregon. Man, I had a fun time there. I really had a fun time working in Portland, Oregon. Think about that. Me in Portland, Oregon. And then my cohort in crime, the great Lars Larson, who has been he is the one that has, over the years, driven that station to success. He's the key guy there. Takes no prisoners. Great radio talk show host. Haven't talked to him. I think we email once in a great while, but I'll never forget that when I worked there, my show was, I think it was like 9 to 12, something like that. And then Lars might come in 5 minutes early and we would talk, and it's, okay, I'll stay a little bit over. There were times I didn't get out of there till 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Yeah. I was doing 5, sometimes 6 hours of talk radio. We were having so much fun, and it was during the whole Clinton thing.
Oh, yeah.
With
Monica Lewinsky? Or just the Clinton thing in general?
No. The whole Monica Lewinsky thing.
And or just the whole Bill thing.
we had so much fun. What was the point? What was my original point I was trying to make there? There was
you at one point took a trip to Hawaii to visit Pearl Harbor.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And took listeners, whatever. But it was a work thing for me because I had to do my show, and it was like 9 o'clock in Hawaii time. It was like 6 a.m.
Yeah,
that I had to be up. Now I will say this: we stayed in the hotel right at Duke's Canoe Club, and we would have breakfast and do show prep on the roof. And you could see the sun rising over the Pacific. That was cool.
Yeah.
That was really cool. But went, at that point, the USS Missouri, that it wasn't open to the public yet. Where they signed, the surrender, the Japanese surrender. But we were allowed to go on.
Yeah.
And I remember that I was there, and no, I'm not lying, Eric. My girlfriend at the time, who came with us,
friend who was a girl, right? Yeah. I believe it.
Still a friend today. I went there, and there's right where they sign the surrender.
Yeah.
There's like a little, globe and monument at that point. And we've all seen the picture where you've got MacArthur there and the Japanese officials and everybody. You see all the Navy personnel lined up all over the place.
Yeah.
And it was right at I get goosebumps talking about it. And I knelt down and probably had tears coming down. I got extremely emotional. I remember she asked me why, and I said, because no one knows where fascism would be today if it wasn't for the United States entering that war.
It's one of those where you have to imagine it because it didn't happen, but you can't possibly imagine it because there is no telling how bad it would have been if we didn't enter that war,
right,
and it didn't end the way that it did.
It really, 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 really slowed down the spread of fascism. Now, communism came in at that point, but and so when you're standing there and then you look and you see the USS Arizona monument there,
yeah,
and you can still see the USS Arizona, parts of it sticking or right beneath the water. You understand even back then that isolationism may sound like a great concept, but in the real world, it doesn't work.
No,
that's a great hypothetical that comes up against the real world. And I had a few emails as soon as I woke up. And again, I won't watch the entire debate till probably later on, just to see the highlights. I've probably, through all the different audio cuts, watched about 60% of it. It's just I'm sleeping during that time. It's just impossible for me to do so. I don't have the time between sleep and now. But I was asked, who won? And I started thinking, especially with these debates, it's almost as if, and they probably still held today, high school, college tournaments where they have, they get to the Final Four, the four teams. And so you have the championship game and you have the consolation game. And so after you play those games, you've got the number one team. It's almost as if, well, for a day, we're going to talk about the consolation game. Does anybody ever talk about the consolation game in sports?
No.
And so that's what you're dealing with. I know it. You know it. Everybody really knows it. But it is an exchange of ideas that is put out. And so I will say this. I think, and again, it's all your personal biases of what you are personally looking for. I'm sure that there are never-Trumper Republicans who look at Christie and say, wow, he did great. And he was, Christie last night did the job that I think he wanted to do. It's not going to get him elected president. He never had a chance, but that's the role that he was playing. And so I think he served his audience. He didn't serve many other people, though, in it. Nikki Haley did okay. I thought she was, hit pretty hard of, taking money that isn't conservative Republican money. How far that goes in a primary, I don't know. I don't think yesterday was her strongest moment. DeSantis, and again, this comes from my personal political bias of what not bias, but not political bias, my personal bias of what I think, if there wasn't Trump, what I would want, and did they deliver? And I thought DeSantis last week and now delivered in that his answers, so many of his answers were based on what he has already accomplished to defeat the left. And to me, that's extremely important, to have a record of actually doing it. And he's really the only one on that stage that has a record doing it. And now, for the second straight time, in a week was proficient in explaining it.
Yeah.
Ramaswamy, he's young. I think he has said in his campaign some great things, and other things I would have a ton of questions for him. As I said earlier, when he combined Afghanistan and Iraq and basically said that, he communicated the message that we were involved in them because of the fascist neocons, which makes no sense at all. You just said, you'd explain that to me. How is fighting the Islamic Jihad, which we know attacked the United States, and we know where they came from.
Yeah.
And this is a war that's not going to end. It seems as if you're promoting isolationism even from that. And so for me, him not having a track record, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt over the years to explain to me, if he's going to stay in politics, not just what he is against, but what he is for and what he would do.
Yeah.
And there's a difference there. It's very easy to say what you're against. Well, then what would you do to solve the problem?
Right.
We've talked about the tough situation in Ukraine. We have to blunt the... It's funny because I've heard this in Ukraine, it's the neocon imperialism, but the imperialism actually is coming from Russia. It's not coming from the rest of the world there. But we have to blunt the effort of whatever Putin wants to do because it's against the best interest of the United States and the West. The problem is you have somebody completely incompetent as president of the United States who lies to the American public. And so you can't trust anything that he says or anything that his administration says about anything due to the fact that we know he lied about what the generals told him he should do in Afghanistan, and he had no problem lying right to the American public.
Mm-hmm.
He faced them, looked at them, and told them a lie. And we only found that out when the generals had to testify before Congress. And so, no, here's the advice we gave, which is to have, keep the airport, have a small force in there because that makes all the difference in the world for intelligence gathering and security of that country.
Right.
And there are some places, look, we've been all over the world since World War II. And we're not going anywhere. And so you look at it and you say, okay, what places should we be? But there's that narrative that we should be in a certain place for only a certain time, and then we get out, and that's not realistic with the Islamic radicalism and jihad. This is going to go on decades upon decades upon decades upon decades upon decades. Sometimes you have to fight the enemy your entire life or for decades and or centuries. That's just the reality of the enemy. You can't dictate and define your enemy like Democrats wish to define a woman.
Yeah, there's not. And look, every new president is going to be tested by the enemy. We've seen it. It's played out with every new president. And this idea that, well, we're not going to do anything about it. From Ramaswamy, because if you're talking about being an isolationist, then what you're saying is, well, you're going to wait until they come here, which, by the way, they're already here. You're not going to go outside of your borders to make sure that they don't get here? Wouldn't that be job number one? That's job number one, in my opinion. And a terrorism superstate right now is already in play. It's what we created in Afghanistan. The American people, the polls were all over the place because they look at a long war in Afghanistan and they go, no, time to end it. Time to end it. Yeah, time to end it. Time to end it. And with the botched exit, they go, oh, well, maybe we should have left a couple thousand, 2,000 or 3,000 still there. which is the plan.
Which
that was the plan all along
from the generals, right?
Up until Biden.
Right.
And it also gave us a great advantage in terms of intel. And that's gone. And so I'm wondering on all fronts right now what the actual plan is, what the actual game is, if there is any advantage in the intel world at all, where those advantages would be. Clearly, with Hamas attacking Israel, and news hit what was just a few days ago. They were aware of a possible attack for roughly a year leading up to that. What the failures were remains to be seen, and that will, in fact, Benjamin Netanyahu said, that's going to come back on me. He said from the beginning, right now we're going to fight this war, but eventually I'll have to answer that for that, and we'll see where it goes. I want to know what the U.S. intel is. I want to know what we know about our enemy, or if there's even a desire to know about the enemy. Based on the botched exit of Afghanistan, that's a legitimate question.
And I also think something that should have been discussed, and we talked about this when the whole Afghanistan thing was blowing up. There should be a discussion. We have our military in 160 different bases around the country or around the world. And you have to sit there and look at it and go, well, maybe we shouldn't be in this country. Maybe Afghanistan's where we should be, and we shouldn't be over here. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a discussion to have if you keep expanding. But the fact is there are dangerous places, and Afghanistan is someplace where we should have kept the base.
Yep.
That would have been a smart military strategic position to hold mm-hmm. with very little, because there were very few casualties, as we know, once we had it established, right, of American soldiers.
Right.
And so you look at it and you say, okay, because that's directly related to 9/11. So we know what they'll do. And so when Ramaswamy came out and includes that in the fascist neocon mentality that exists, to me, that just smelled of complete and total ignorance.
Yeah.
Or panic just to attack Christie back, one or the other.
It could have been either. Right? Yeah.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Owner-operators with authority generally have two options when it comes to sourcing freight. Brokers on the spot market or directly from the source, the shipper. As any trucker with relatively recent experience with spot freight knows, the highs of working the load boards can be really high. On the other side of that coin, however, when the market flips in favor of shippers, it can be tough to keep your business afloat working with brokers. The smallest carriers with direct customers, however, can hang on through tough times or even prosper, as long as demand for their customers' product remains at least somewhat stable. Owner-operators in it for the long haul make direct business with customers a principal goal. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more detail on this and many other topics.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up following the bottom of the hour, looking at some of these headlines here.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
This comes from Trump's town hall with Sean Hannity the other night. Are you ready?
Okay.
MSNBC, Trump on possible second term. I'd be a dictator on day one. Is that an accurate representation about what Trump actually said, if you include the entire statement?
No.
Here it is. USA Today. Trump says he'll be a dictator only on day one. Vanity Fair. Donald Trump, don't worry. I'll only be a dictator for one day. The Atlantic. Trump says he'll be a dictator on day one. Mm-hmm. CBS. Trump says he would be a dictator only on day one if he gets a second term. The Guardian UK, Trump says he'll be a dictator only on day one if elected. Is that an accurate representation of the context of what was said and how it was said? We'll let you hear it. Unedited.
Right.
What he actually said, just to show you how the media will spin.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. Listen when you choose, if you can't listen live overnight.
And thank you.
Yeah, because right after the show's over, a little bit after the show's over, the podcast is up, and you can listen during the day. You can pretend we're on during the day.
That's
and I
right.
know when we get especially places like Australia, things like that, or Japan. People already say, "Well, we listen to you during the day," and that's true. The podcast would be on at night over there.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
All right. So here are some of the headlines. Which headline is the most accurate?
All right.
Trump on possible second term. I'd be a dictator on day one. MSNBC from 8 hours ago. Is that an accurate context of what Trump actually said?
No.
USA Today, Donald Trump says he'll be a dictator only on day one. Then he'll focus on drilling. Well, that's not accurate. Vanity Fair, Donald Trump, don't worry, I'll only be a dictator for one day. The Atlantic, these are all liberal publications. Trump says he'll be a dictator on day one. CBS News, Trump says he would be a dictator only on day one if elected president. The Guardian, Trump says he will be a dictator only on day one if elected. I guess they probably took that from CBS News. Business Insider, Trump says he'll only be a dictator on day one. TMZ, Donald Trump promises he'll be a dictator on day one. Let me make sure. Okay. I promise I'll be a dictator, but only on day one. And finally, we'll give you this headline. Donald Trump jokes about acting like a dictator.
There you go.
Where do we find that one? Who did that headline? Anybody guess? CNN. That was accurate. And let us play the actual audio from Trump so you can put it in we all can put it in its proper context.
I want to go back to this one issue, though, because the media has been focused on this and attacking you. Under no circumstances, you are promising America tonight you would never abuse power as retribution against anybody.
Except for day one.
Except
Look,
what?
he's going crazy. Except for day one.
Meaning?
I want to close the border and I want to drill.
That's
drill,
not.
drill.
That's not.
No, no.
That's not retribution.
I'm going to be. He keeps. We love this guy. He says, "You're not going to be a dictator, are you?" I said, "No. Other than day one, we're closing the border and we're drilling. After that, I'm not a dictator." Okay.
And he's laughing during the whole time.
Yeah.
Now, we all know what he meant. He's going to put an executive order to close the border day one because that's the only thing that he can do. He's joking. He's playing back into it. But the headlines read, that's why you got to be careful what you say because they will take you out of context all the time.
Yeah, I think they're going to do that anyway. I think they're going to look for things.
Well, they can't if he doesn't say it.
Well, then he can't ever tell a joke, right? Obama didn't actually own a socialist mob. That I know of.
Here's the point. It doesn't. You have to deal with the reality that they will take you out of context, and Your whole goal, again, is to get independence. And you saw it splattered, even though the headlines are all inaccurate and a lie. You have a certain number of people. Look, as I've said, the majority of responses, and I went through hundreds and hundreds on Taylor Swift being Time's Person of the Year, nobody has any idea that it's not an award. Oh, by the way, just very quickly here.
Mm-hmm.
Even the media doesn't know it. Very quickly, I saved it on my phone here. This is from WPXI in Pittsburgh. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
WPXI TV in Pittsburgh. We'll never get exhausted, always rooting for the anti-hero. Congrats to Taylor Swift, Time Magazine's 2023 Person of the Year. The media doesn't even know that it's not an award.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an award. And that's all I saw on social media. It's about time somebody like her won. Normally it's politicians or people that do bad things. Thank goodness. You're completely clueless.
It's Newsmaker of the Year.
And so we're dealing with, again, it's something that is the reality of politics. And even though I knew as soon as I saw it, he was kidding. Before I even
critical
saw
thinkers know, because critical thinkers do their homework, and you can't. There's no fixing stupid, and ignorance is no excuse.
And remember, the Democrats are still using the fact, still today using the lie that Trump said there are good people on both sides, and he was referring to the Nazis that were there in Charlottesville. And everybody knows, if you read the context, he specifically excluded them, yet they will still lie. And that's the problem. You got to be careful. You have to.
But even then, I mean, you and I have talked about it, doing interviews with, the big media. Who was it? Was it Nightline? That took me out of context?
Nightline took me out of context.
And there's the thing, but as a president or somebody who's running for president, you're going to have to talk, and them taking you out of context is going to be a given, regardless of what you say. The liberal media is going to go out of their way to shape their narrative, and they will edit. And we saw that. Who was it? Rick Perry?
What do you
with MSNBC based on the editing?
I understand
of what he
that,
said.
but why not? Why help them?
Well, again, where would you draw the line?
Easy. It's ridiculous. They're just afraid they can't win on the issues, so they always throw out that Donald Trump, that Donald Trump is, a fascist, a dictator. We all know that's not true. I've lived in this. I've lived in this country. I have built up. I have. I'm a builder, as we've said before. I build things. I don't destroy things. I honor the Constitution of the United States. But what I would do is put through executive orders to close the border on day one. We would close the border, and we would start drilling, and we would be in control of our own destiny. And I'm just doing that ad lib off the top of my head.
Well, but would you just stop joking? Would you stop making any jokes at all, or
no? I can make jokes. You just have to watch. Because, you have to watch how you phrase things.
Well,
that's all.
But again, it doesn't matter what he says. They're going to carve it out the way they want to carve it out. And that says more about them.
If he didn't,
than him.
if he didn't say I would be a dictator. They couldn't have used that. They could have used something else, but they couldn't have used that.
Critical thinkers know that he was
joking. Not talking about critical thinkers. If we were talking about critical thinkers, I would agree with you 100%. I'm talking about...
Well, is the lie on the liar?
The what?
Is the lie on the liar?
No, but
because they're lying by doing the...
No, but your goal...
Well, it is. I mean, the lie is on the liar. The person telling the lie is the one responsible.
Of course it is, but it doesn't matter if the ignorant don't know that.
Well,
and the ignorant
no excuse.
And the ignorant vote, but the ignorant vote, that's the reality. That's why it's the same thing as when we saw that after Biden was in and people were disappointed, we saw, well, see what you got because you didn't like the tweets. And our first comment was, well, what you should be saying if you're a Republican is, if you know the tweets are harmful, and the rhetoric you're putting out is harmful, and you're admitting, because Republicans were admitting that people didn't vote for Donald Trump because of the tweets, then don't put out the tweets. They're not necessary. If what you say harms you, don't Do it. Make it as hard as you possibly can for them to take your words out of context.
On certain items, I would agree. On this, I think it's one more example of the media doing what the media does, which is why it's an all-time low in terms of trusting the media.
Right, but your goal,
especially the liberal media, the Atlantic is a joke.
Right, your goal as a candidate, though, you know that's a given. So you do everything possible, and if you can't joke in that way, you can't joke in that way. Because the goal is to win.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm talking about what a candidate should do. It's what I would do if I was running.
Mm-hmm.
Anything, okay, I've learned what they will take out of context. I can't joke about this, so I won't joke about that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to tell the American people how I'm going to benefit them over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Look, it's unfair. It's absolutely unfair, everything that's gone on. But Trump is in a position of power right now with his base, and he's in a position of power because of Biden. Take advantage of that. Go after the people. Actually, I would have reversed it. Dictator. The Democrats have the dictator mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Have them write that one. Trump says Democrats have a dictator mindset. Why? Number one, look at how they go after women in the radical transgender movement. Look how they want to force you to buy electric vehicles. Look how they are telling you they are forcing us into economic and energy suicide and national security suicide. These people are the dictators. They wish to force you to do things. I don't want to force you to do things. I want to liberate people and liberate business and liberate this country to get to its maximum potential. And again, just off the top of my head, that is, I think, how you answer it. You go on the attack. And then you bring up the point, as we've always done. Democrats always call me what they are. Democrats always make the accusation against Republicans, and what you find out is that that's what they're doing. For example, in Russia collusion was a hoax. In fact, Hillary was the one that set me up. Hillary is the one that colluded with the Russians. Have them fact check that. Attack.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well,
I know for us it's a nothing. What he did, it's nothing. We understand. It was funny.
Yeah,
it was actually humorous, and it was funny for that audience.
And that's the thing is that the Russian hoax has been out there, and the media has been writing those false headlines, and will continue to do that. At the New York Times, they still tell their listeners that the Russians put them into power in 2016. They're still carrying the Russian hoax on.
But as we know, the media doesn't have as much power as they had before, and people are starting to figure it out. So if he wishes to win, you take that and you use that to your advantage, that the public's getting smart on these people, and they realize that, the media comes out that I want to be a dictator, I want to be a dictator. They want to be dictators. They're the ones that want to control your life.
Exactly.
I don't want to control your life.
Exactly.
And so there's just a way to argue it. Again, for us, it's a nothing burger. I agree with you. For us, I mean, it was a funny moment because we understood exactly what he meant. He meant, I'm going to put through an executive order. Unfortunately, in this country, you have to convince the ignorant to vote for you.
Mm-hmm.
In order to win an election.
Well, yeah. It's again on something like that. If it were, we talked about January 6th, and the first statement that was made was totally off base.
Yep.
But that's a president talking in the moment of what was a growing concern by everybody on that day, and which is why he had to come back and issue the second statement. On something like this, you make a joke. I don't know that it has that kind of impact. There are things that you have to be deliberate about. There are things you have to be very careful of what you say. You talk about how you're going to deal with China, how you're going to deal with, the economy. putting a 10% tariff across the board. Those are the things I think that really have a huge impact.
And the thing was, what he followed with what he was going to do by kidding about being a dictator is exactly what the vast majority, 70% plus of Americans want to hear.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Don't let that get lost. Make it as hard as you can for the media to lie about you. I guess that's my point. That would be a discussion that I would have with my campaign. We need to make it as hard as possible for the media to lie about us because we're attacking Democrats. So they have to cover whether we're accurate about what Democrats are doing. And if they start trying to discuss the issues, that's the last thing the mainstream media wants to do.
Well, even in the face of those, what they're doing, it's lies nonetheless.
Yeah,
they're still carrying on the Russian hoax, and they've been proven wrong. So I don't know what control you're going to have there.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Joe Biden answered a question yesterday.
Oops.
It didn't go too well. Details coming up.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Here we are. We made it. I almost said to a Friday.
Yeah.
This is our Friday.
This is our Friday.
We
have a 3-day weekend coming up. We will be out tomorrow. Our friend Chris Kroc will be here, keeping you company. Then we're back Sunday night, Monday morning. So, this is our Friday. My wife actually brought it up yesterday in passing. Hey, so after tonight, you have the weekend. I was like, what? Oh, that's right. And I just wasn't thinking about it. But,
I have a huge music weekend.
Yeah? Ooh, really?
Huge, yeah.
You who are you going to see?
Trans-Siberian
right.
on Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
When it's going to be 78 degrees with 30-mile-an-hour winds.
Nice.
And then I go to that bluegrass band that I love from Branson, the family, the Petersons.
Oh.
Saturday afternoon. They're so good.
Yeah.
If you haven't ever put Petersons in, Petersen and Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh, yeah.
Just and it's not, if you were to ask me what my favorite form of music is, it's heavier rock.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. And prog rock. That's really what has been drawn to. And I do believe it's a direct result of my father being so scared of rock and roll and paranoid of rock and roll that all he had was classical music. Classical music albums. We had Bach, Beethoven, Tchaikovsky. I remember Bach, Beethoven, Tchaikovsky, and Strauss's waltzes, and John Philip Sousa marching band. That's all we had when we were kids. That's all that played on the record player all the time. And then my father was like, "What are you into that early? What are you listening to, you radical teenager? This early Genesis stuff." Well, Dad, it comes out of what you played for me.
Yeah.
You listen to all this drug music, this animal music. Dad, it's all based on classical, which is why one of the reasons I love Trans-Siberian is the classical element of them.
Yeah, sure.
You know, and but with a much heavier sound. But the Petersons, and I talked about it. It was, I was doing work around the house one day, and I told you I think they're the best cover band out there, the Lexington Lab Band. That is really now a group of they have a core of 6 or 7 players, but they have 85 and I think total of 85 people that have participated from the Lexington area, and it's all volunteer. Everything is volunteer. The camera work, whatever. You put them on YouTube, and everything is perfect. I mean, the sound is perfect. The camera angles are perfect. Everything is perfect. They can play a song that I don't like, and they do it so well. I'm like, wow, that's a great tune. And so I was watching them one day. They were on, and they actually were doing. They did and they do everything. They do mostly 80s, 90s, 70s, a lot of classic rock, but then they delve into other stuff. They do Zeppelin. They just kill. Kill on Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Even I can listen to their Pink Floyd stuff, and I'm not a huge Floyd. Not that I mind it, but I don't, but I just was never a huge Floyd fan. But I can watch I can watch their stuff doing it. Well, they were doing some bluegrass. They had the late bluegrass banjo player, guitarist, whatever, J.D. Crowe. And it's the only one where they've actually took an artist and had him in there, and they did bluegrass. And so the algorithm put it right to the next song that came up was, I'm like, what in the world am I watching here? What is this Waltons? Because they had the long dress, very traditional, long dresses on. I go, what is this Waltons, Donny Osmond, Ricky Nelson band? What is this? I'm like, oh, they're really good. They were on the rest of the day. And I just sat there with my jaw dropped going, boy, I just love discovering something that you wouldn't think. It's like, okay, bluegrass is okay. I was into some of it. And, I was into, when I was growing up, Poco, and they did some bluegrass stuff and early Poco.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, and I'm such a huge fan of that. But unbelievable musicians. Unbelievable. So I'm seeing them. And then it's a debate between going back to the coffee shop where they're going to have live music on Saturday night. So that'd be Saturday afternoon and Saturday night. Or going back home because my favorite solo pianist, Michelle McLaughlin, who's just amazing. I discovered her on the Trans-Siberian Orchestra channel. She's just amazing. Her fingers talk. You see the title of a song. There's no vocals, just the music.
Right.
And if she has a title to it and she starts playing it, you're like, she's communicating a verbal message with me with her piano playing.
Yeah.
That's how good she is. And from what I heard, she's never had a lesson. She's doing a live stream Saturday night. So I'm just going to be enveloped in music this weekend. It's going to be fun.
All right. Good.
Now, saying that, I want to make it clear that when I talk about the fact that it drove me crazy yesterday, all the people saying, including, is it PXI in Pittsburgh, whatever the TV station I mentioned before, that talked about congratulations to Taylor Swift for being named as if it's an award. It's not an award. People are clueless. And going on social media yesterday, people are clueless. Look, I said, I don't get it. I don't get her superstardom. I'm not going to judge her music because that's the dumbest time you could ever spend is debating people that your music is better than theirs. You're never going to convince people. People, whatever their brain likes, and you can't stop it.
Yeah.
So I've got nothing against Taylor Swift at all. I could care less. It's like I don't get why she is this incredible superstar based on the music that's, poppy and nothing extravagant. It's just not what I'm really into a lot. But doesn't mean I judge it as being bad. People like what they like. But it's just the ignorance that came out yesterday of people having no idea what Time Magazine's Person of the Year is about, which is supposed to be newsmaker, not pop culture icon.
Yeah.
For how long has she been dating Kelsey? 2 months?
I think.
She's been
when was the opening game? honestly, it's like somebody saying, "Well, my favorite food is the best."
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
you like pizza?
That's what you like, or you can't cook a steak well done.
Yeah.
Actually, you can. I've seen it happen. Now we'll talk about whether or not you should.
I like pizza. No, hot dogs are better. No, it's pizza. No, it's hot dog. I mean, music, it's useless to
you
have that.
Yeah, you can't put ketchup on eggs. Yeah, you can. Now let's talk about whether or not you should.
The last time I had an argument was, not an argument really, just a humorous debate, was with my friend Kelly, who always told me she loves Aerosmith. She loves Aerosmith. She loves Aerosmith. And I'm like, some's okay. And then I forgot which song I heard. It was earlier Aerosmith where they were really rocking.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, well, I do like this song. This is a really good song. She goes, well, I don't like those songs. I don't like any of the hard stuff that they do. What I found out is she only likes the one song from the Aerosmith Daughter movie.
Right. Armageddon.
Right. It's like, well, then you really don't like Aerosmith.
Right.
You just like...
You like that ballad.
You like that ballad.
Yeah.
The ballad stuff is what you like. It's like...
Well, and, for me, the first album I ever bought, because my brother wouldn't let me listen to his, was Draw the Line. My second album was Elton John, Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy. And Draw the Line, Toys in the Attic, oh my gosh, man. They're early stuff. It's for me, it's because it takes me back to that age. It takes me back to that era. And it also... And it sounds very different than, when they came out with Walk This Way, the Run DMC version, which, huge radio hit, and I know why they did it. But from that point on, the production values were different in that, and I'm not saying they were bad, they were just different. And they sounded more organic, like a band playing in a room leading up to that point for me. And that's what I loved about it. It felt like being in a room, and I had, in fact, a friend who could sing like Steven Tyler. I mean, spot on from Del Rio. And it was crazy. But that, it felt like it had that organic garage band kind of feel, like they were all jamming in a room. And then, their production values, again, different. People can decide whether they liked them better or not. Once they did the collaboration with Run DMC, from that point on, things changed. And they were massive hit makers. They dwarfed what they did in the 70s.
But you know something, as I get older, I mean, I notice that I'm drawn to so many of the YouTube videos where everything is live and the sound is incredibly good.
Right.
And the camera angles are good, which is why the Lexington Lab Band, which got me right into the Peterson's Bluegrass Band, which is just all of it's live.
Right.
They're not overdubbing anything. What you hear is what you hear, and so you can't hide bad musicianship at that point when you realize what excellent musicians they are, and that it was Paul O'Neill that said a couple of things. That one thing that he wanted to do was he wanted to produce music, for Trans-Siberian.
Yeah.
He wanted music that was emotional. He figured Christmas music and religious kind of stuff for Christmas music is extremely emotional. Plus, he wanted an assault on your senses.
Right.
And so you get it with the lasers and everything else. And to me, the opposite end of that would be the bluegrass band, the Petersons I mentioned, which is still an assault on your senses because in almost every single song, every person is highlighted. And it's like boom, 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 boom. But they do their videos in nature settings or in lodges or it's like the complete opposite, but it's still that assault on your senses, which I think is the coolest thing and just such excellent musicianship.
Yeah, you and I were talking off the air. We didn't mention it on the air, but the passing of Miles Goodwin, the lead singer of April Wine, a Canadian band that did very well here in the States, especially early on in their career. And you didn't have that exposure to them that I did. I was younger. You're 10 years older than me. And so that kind of plays into it. But I saw them live in 81 and in San Antonio. And their live show was
was good.
Good. Man, they just crushed it. And, and he had one of those, he had a resonance about his voice that I really liked and was drawn to. After their first 2-3 albums, they didn't do, great. But when I saw the song, actually heard the song Roller in the Adam Sandler movie, Grown Ups, who was in the big tire being rolled? Was that David Spade? Who was it? I forget which one of them it was.
I've never seen the movie.
But the song Roller from April Wine
was perfect.
Starts, and I'm just it just took me to my feet. I was like, yes, it was a perfect, and it's Adam Sandler doing what Adam Sandler does, getting those old rock songs, kind of, because he knows it'll, bring up a memory for the viewer and the fans of his movies, and that was part of it too. But yeah, the live show really separates the artist.
We talked about this before as I get older, because I was so much into what my brain loved musically speaking. And the more complicated it got, the better my brain liked it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, as I'm getting older, the simple pop songs that I grew up with
make more sense.
Bring back nostalgia.
Yeah.
They may not be the greatest produced albums, and technically you're not talking about then again, probably half of them were done by the Wrecking Crew to begin with, so they were excellent songs.
Well, yeah.
That blew my mind when I found out that the Wrecking Crew would do a song in the 60s. They would do a song, and then they would form a band to go out and play it live, but it was the Wrecking Crew that was actually doing it.
Right.
And it was like, wow.
And it may sound contrived, and you could probably have an argument, well, wait a minute, but it's really not. It's exactly what you should be doing, bringing that group of, the best musicians together to create that magic, that music.
I mean, one of the best guitarists ever was Tommy Tedesco.
Oh, yeah.
Ever. And nobody has any idea who he is.
I'm with you on the growing older thing. I heard in Home Depot, of all places, a Steely Dan song, and I thought, why does that sound different? Why does that sound different?
It brings you what I love about it, and I didn't experience this 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I'm like, a song will come on, and it brings me back to an exact moment.
Oh, yeah.
50 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's a pleasurable, it's not like a sad thing. It's a pleasurable thing going, oh, yeah, that was a cool time.
I should have appreciated it more, especially starting as a musician as early as I did, 10 years old. Rick Beato, by the way, on YouTube, if you don't follow him, you should. Beato, Rick Beato. He's one of those guys that will, and he will. Okay, what makes this song good? And he'll break it down, and he does really great interviews too. But he has kind of renewed that. Watching his videos and breakdowns of it, it's like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. And he'll dissect a song, and it just really, he knows his stuff. I mean, he just absolutely knows it. But he talks in very plain language, and it's really fascinating to watch. And if you thought you had an appreciation for the music that you grew up on, go back and watch his channel. It will enhance that tenfold at least.
The best money I ever spent was $12-13 a month not to have commercials on YouTube.
Oh, man, and watching Rick talk to an artist for whatever it is, an hour and a half.
Yep.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And I love the YouTube videos where people listen to music for the first time that's completely foreign to them.
Yeah.
And they have their headphones on going, what is this?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I love
reaction.
That. Yeah.
For hearing a song for the first time. Yeah.
866-90 Red Eye.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Run Radio. He is Eric Hurley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up on the bottom of the hour. Well, the good news, Joe Biden answered a question. The bad news, it didn't go well for him.
Yeah, the bad news is also that Joe Biden answered a question.
I should have framed it that way. That would have been the correct way to frame it. You're right. I blew it.
Yeah, well, we can't all be perfect.
I had one opportunity, and I blew it.
It's that reminds me of the movie Copland. Freddie, you had your chance and you blew it. The conundrum that they have at the White House, frankly, is Joe Biden. He's their conundrum. But this is part of why they, for a while, were sending him out the back door. Remember that? Mm-hmm. I forget the excuse they came up with. Oh, they were doing something at the front door. They were doing a repair on the front door or something. But it was, keep him away from the media. If I'm chief of staff, every day I start with that. Keep POTUS away from the media, out of shouting distance.
They have to be panicking after yesterday.
There's no doubt in my mind that they are.
The fourth branch of government. Eric Harley and Gary McNamara on Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Biden took a question yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Here it is to the New York Post, Steve Nelson, on him communicating with his son's business partners.
There's polling by the Associated Press that shows that almost 70% of Americans, including 40% of Democrats, believe that you acted either illegally or unethically in regards to your family's business interests. Can you explain to the Americans, amid this impeachment inquiry, why you interacted with so many of your son and brother's foreign business associates?
I'm not going to comment on that. I did not, and it was just a bunch of lies.
You didn't interact with many of their business associates?
I did not. There's lies.
And then he walks away. He cannot. How does he campaign?
I don't know.
He can't answer any questions.
It's going to have to be all ads, because what do you do? Or getting up and reading a prompter occasionally. But how does he also? How does he have the stamina to visit all the key states? Think about that. It's required. You got to go to all of them. And the key states where the battlegrounds are, you have to go multiple times. And right now, it's not looking good for him in a number of states.
And when you see the look on his face, it's like he's completely lost.
Yeah.
He does, and he started answering. Then you can see he started to get angry.
Right.
That's
his defiance.
And I'm thinking if somebody else asked the question. Now, the problem is, and the RNC put this out right away, after it, said, wait a minute. It's not just us. The CNN, because this wasn't yesterday from CNN, but CNN, a ways back, said it. Here we go. CNN said it.
Despite his denials, a CNN review of the laptop data, as well as other public material, shows that Joe Biden did interact with some of his son's associates while serving as vice president.
Now, that's a ways back. But they had that out there yesterday, and it's like, you're not going to win this one.
You're not.
It's almost as if he's gone back to the original
argument.
The original argument that nobody was using anymore.
Yeah. He's trying to. The goalpost has moved so. The goalpost has moved so many times. It's come full circle.
Because where they are right now is Joe just was giving out loans.
It's a loan.
And it's like, yeah, but you're ignoring the other part where the money's coming from.
Right.
And then the when you actually break it down, what the fallback argument is now, and this is just beautiful when you actually break it down, and some Republican needs to do this when confronting a Democrat on it, because what the fallback position is now is that Joe was just lending money.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we know that Hunter and Jim Biden were getting money from foreign sources on a consistent basis that was going all through the family. What business were they in? And so the fallback position is you're only left with the fact that the entire Biden family is corrupt, and all of them are using old Joe and telling foreign governments that, hey, he's going to do something for you. It's the illusion of influence. And so they got millions from all these foreign sources. Joe never did anything because Joe didn't know about it. So his whole family was involved in making Joe Biden appear to be corrupt.
Yeah.
That's what you're left with.
Right.
And you think about it, how corrupt is the entire family? They set up all these bank accounts and LLCs, and Joe knew nothing about any of it whatsoever.
Right.
He knew nothing. And they all took advantage of poor old Joe. Joe only loved everybody, and everybody in the family, everybody in the Biden family has screwed over poor old Joe, is now the fallback position for the media on this.
How dare they? Hunter and James and...
I will admit, they haven't said it, but that's what they're communicating.
No, that's basically it.
That's what they're communicating.
That's the message, is that he knew nothing about it. These were loans, and he knew nothing about where the money was coming from.
Right. Because you asked then, okay, if Hunter and Jim Biden were getting all this money and distributing it to all the family members, and all the family members knew what was going on, well, what business were they in? Well, that's where you get to the illusion of influence that the media and the Democrats have even talked about. Well, it was an illusion. Oh, so they were all lying. So Jim and Hunter Biden were lying to all of these foreign entities that are enemies of the United States, telling them that Joe was going to do something for them, and they never delivered, and the entire family, the bank accounts connected them, and they got cash.
Yeah.
Which means they knew what was going on. So all of the Biden family is corrupt and screwing over old Joe, who just didn't have any idea what was going on because he just loved his family, and they all hated him because they used him to enrich themselves.
Now, if they ever get to the point of actually saying it that way, then I think the media should ask the question, will you disavow your son and your brother and the rest of your family for what they have done to you? It's so stupid right now how bad it is with Joe Biden. Whatever's going on with his cognitive situation, the whole Hunter thing, which is so obvious, and the facts are building by the second. It's just insane how obvious it is. And more, I really do believe that you have a growing number, well, the polls are showing it. You have a growing number of people, including rank-and-file Democrats, not all of them. But you have a growing number of people that are saying, yeah, this isn't the answer. And I think they're still hoping against hope, even after the horrible performance by Newsom, that even if it's not Newsom, somebody, please run against Trump. Because when you start seeing the polls, if you're a rank-and-file Democrat, you start seeing the polls and you still hate Trump and you don't want to, there's no way you're never going to vote for Trump. You're hoping against hope right now that something will change. Well, it's got to change in the next couple of weeks.
During the press conference, New York Post reporter Stephen Nelson asked Biden if he would explain to the American people ahead of the potential impeachment inquiry why he interacted with so many of his son and brother's foreign business associates You notice how he used the Associated Press, too, when talking about the polling and everything else, that the polling shows 70% of Americans, including 40% of the Democrats, believe you've done something wrong. As vice president, we know now, with information coming out, more information coming out from the whistleblowers the other day, used email aliases and private email addresses to communicate with son Hunter Biden and Hunter's business associates hundreds of times, new records released by the House Ways and Means Committee revealed, and he's still denying that he communicated with them.
Mm-hmm.
Nelson cited recent polling from the Associated Press found nearly 70% of Americans, including 40% of Democrats, believe Biden acted unethically or illegally when it came to his family's business interest. Now, the thing is, if I was accused of this, and this is an albatross, and I'm running for president, this is an albatross around his neck, and it's untrue, I would do everything to bring the evidence to show that it wasn't true.
Exactly.
I would bring the evidence out to show you this was a loan. These were legitimate loans. And then you would ask the next question. You would be willing to answer the question, what business is my family in?
Mm-hmm.
If he can't answer what business my family was in, that's the problem.
Yep.
And remember, Democrats already tried to use that as an excuse, saying, well, the Trump family's been in business for years. Why can't the Biden family? Well, fine. Okay. Great point. We know what business Trumps are in. What business are the Bidens in?
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. That's the stink of this whole thing. And this is why the media is doing everything they possibly can. And that's why the public, it's only going in one direction. Then when the public comes out and goes, it was only a loan. He just cares about, the American public knows it's not about the loan. It's where the money came from to pay back the loan.
Yeah.
And what business the Bidens were in. And all these bank accounts that were set up. Why was the Biden family enriched to tens of millions of dollars? What was the business that they were in that they got foreign entities tied to governments that are anti-American? What was the business that they were in? And the Biden should be able to answer this like this, and it goes away.
Yep.
They can't do it.
No, they can't. Because the more they talk about it, the more the evidence goes against them. There's no evidence. They clearly don't have it. Because if you try and convince me that Joe Biden, of all people, wouldn't run out and squash the GOP, at the very least, take a heck of a lot of steam away from the GOP in a heartbeat if he could do it. Because the way he would see it is, this is my battle against Trump, which it is by default. Boom. Look at their party. They're weak. Look, this is evidence that it was a loan. This is evidence of no wrongdoing. He can't do that. And you can't convince me that he's sitting on evidence and isn't using it. You'll never convince me that Joe Biden is sitting on evidence and won't use it in his favor.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. This is going to be an interesting debate coming up as the Democrats, this whole thing about funding for Ukraine and Israel, and see how the Republicans frame this. Especially it's the Democrats, and it's already been framed. We talked about this yesterday. It's already been framed that the Democrats do not want to fund Ukraine and Israel unless they have open borders in the United States. Mm-hmm. That's not going to sell well with the American public.
No, it's not.
The president said a couple days ago the border has been nothing more than an excuse for the hard right to kill funding for Ukraine. I'm sorry, the president just said, Schumer said it, and too many other Republican senators who are not part of the hard right are going along. Schumer said on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
You can't win that argument.
No.
Because the argument is, no, the Republicans are trying to force the Democrats to stop with the open borders.
Yep.
Now, how they're going to do that piece of legislation, I don't know.
I wondered about that, too. You hit a stalemate. I don't know where it goes from here.
No,
I really don't.
No, I mean, how do you frame the legislation so that Biden just doesn't take the money and use it for what he wants?
Oh,
or
okay,
not, or just not apply the money.
Okay.
You can sit there and say, because you can sit there as Congress and say, we've allocated.
That's one of the first things I thought of.
$20 billion to border,
and it hasn't been used.
Border security now, and they just go, well, okay,
right.
We're looking into it, and we need to look at any different thing. We need to go through the rulemaking process, and they could extend that out for another 5, 6, 7 years.
Mayorkas could, just hit the brakes on it.
Yeah. So even if they get it, do they actually get it?
Mm-hmm. Well, no,
that would be the question I would have for Republicans.
It was one of the first things that I think for me, and I was thinking of. In fact, I had a question that was very similar, and that was, what about all the money right now that's there for border security that isn't being used or isn't being used as intended? And how do you control any future money until there's a change? There has to be a new administration to change that, and one that is quite the opposite of this administration. Because you can't force them to use the money. You can't force them to enforce the border when they clearly don't want to. Now, it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it and fight for it, but ultimately, it's very clear, and that's, by the way, I would put that on the GOP. If they were able to get funding through, then you stay on it as long as Biden's in office and show this money isn't being used. We intended this money to be used for this purpose. I don't know how far that goes, but you fight to no end. But they clearly want an open border over helping any, whether it's Ukraine or Israel, helping any other nation. There's no doubt.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. This is something we haven't even talked about. We didn't talk about it, and I don't think we've talked about sports this week much, except that I can't play golf for a while.
Yeah.
We didn't even talk about the college playoffs and the controversy there.
No.
That Florida State didn't get in and they were undefeated.
Yeah.
And that's not, I'm not heading, this is not a sports conversation. This is, we haven't discussed this, so I'm just going to read it to you, all right?
All right.
This is from Forbes.
Yep.
All right. So here we go. Former President Donald Trump took to his social media platform Monday morning to suggest that GOP presidential rival and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is to blame for the undefeated Florida State University football team not making the college football playoff. Though there's no evidence the governor is responsible.
Yeah, there's that.
In a post on Truth Social, Trump said the school was treated very badly by the committee, referring to the panel that selects teams for the playoffs, adding, let's blame DeSanctimonious for a real bad lobbying effort. DeSantis weighed in on Florida State not making the final field of 4 on Sunday after the decision was released, saying on X, formerly known as Twitter, what we learned today is that you can go undefeated and win your conference championship, but the College Football Playoff Committee will ignore the results. The selection committee, the selection chairman of the playoffs, told ESPN the decision was made in part because Florida State is a different team without their star quarterback who broke his leg last month, though the Seminoles won their last 2 games without Travis. All right?
Yeah.
Now, we're not ending there because DeSantis pledges $1 million for any Florida State University football lawsuit. Florida will put aside $1 million and let the chips fall where they may on that after the Seminoles aren't one of the 4 college football playoff teams. All right, so taxpayer money to sue.
Mm-hmm.
We're not done there yet. Ron DeSantis had harsh words for Donald Trump ahead of the 4th GOP primary debate, calling the former president a keyboard warrior and urging him to debate one-on-one. Donald Trump wants to blame me, DeSantis said on the Ingram angle on Fox, a day after Trump appeared to fault him for Florida State being left out of the college football 4-team playoff. The Florida governor could not have changed the college football playoff selection committee's decision. But Trump and DeSantis have also often criticized each other on the campaign trail. The other thing is Rick Scott says he wants the emails.
And text messages, yeah.
And text messages.
Yeah. Okay. Look, is it a horrible injustice?
Yes, it is. It is.
It couldn't be more blatant.
No, it couldn't be. But,
given the team's record.
But the selection's always subjective to begin with because people pick it.
This has the potential maybe down the road and maybe sooner than later, not this season, but to change that process if enough people are outraged by it.
You look at basketball. Basketball has the playoff system. What do they have now? Not 64 teams. What is it?
I think it's
68?
2,430.
No, because
all the community colleges get in.
No, they have the play-in game, so technically you have 68.
Yeah.
So if you don't get in,
right,
to sit there and go, but they had us ranked at 70 and we were obviously 67, it's not going to mean anything.
Right.
When you have when you have basically 4 teams in a playoff and an undefeated team in a very powerful conference goes undefeated, and you say where their quarterback is injured, they can't do it. That doesn't hold water.
Right.
They earn their way into it.
Yep.
And they were undefeated. And if you're undefeated in that powerful of a conference and that powerful of a team that everybody knows they are, you let them in.
Yeah.
But you don't let them in. They earn their way in. But this is outside the purview of any government agency, state, federal, with Rick Scott. Stop it. Now, I understand, though, because one of the reasons they say that, because I'm very familiar with it, that the county executive of Erie County in New York, one of the reasons he won another term as county executive, even though on COVID, on a ton of different things, people look at him and say, absolutely unqualified. He helped get the money to build a new stadium for the Buffalo Bills. People need their sports. We must we must sedate the masses.
Except in Florida.
Well, no, that's what they're saying.
Yeah.
No, because that's what the
You mean
politicians,
the process?
The politicians are trying to sedate the masses by saying,
I see what you're saying.
we'll
Yeah.
bring justice to the sports team.
Rick Scott.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And will a lawsuit's not going to do anything. It's not going to change.
That's not going to go anywhere.
Florida-
And look, there may be, because of the backlash, there may be a change in the process after this. By the way, ESPN on Monday, quoting a committee, an anonymous committee member, that said, "We didn't think they were going to win their championship. We didn't see that coming because the injury."
Yeah.
But they did. And, look, these discussions will go to change nothing about this season. But the process, and if there's enough backlash, it could change the process going forward. I don't know. Or we may never have this situation again. I don't know. But you're not going to solve it with taxpayer money, and Rick Scott isn't. He could bring some things to light, but it's not going to go anywhere.
Well, I mean, it is going to change anyway. They've already, the NCAA already. It will be 12 teams. I believe it's supposed to be for 2025. I think.
Okay.
Or is it start next year? They originally voted. Let me see here. On September 2nd, 2022, they voted for 2024 and 2025, 12 teams would get in, so it wouldn't be a problem, a year from now, whatever. I don't know if they changed that. I haven't seen where they changed it. I know that was the thing, that they were going to change it. So, what they were trying to do, they're not trying to change it in the future. They're trying to get Florida State in the playoffs. No, that's not going to happen.
I know that. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying.
And it isn't.
That's my point. Is that it's not going to change anything for this season.
But it's what politicians know. Think about it. Government should have nothing to do with sports.
No.
Yet people get so involved in it, they want it.
Right.
Was there an injustice? Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I don't need you to put on a Superman cape for sports.
Yeah. But you have to.
Remember
Hillary. Remember, she was a fan of every team in the country. Remember they called her a sports carpetbagger?
Yeah. Wearing the, was it a Yankees cap for a while?
Was it her or Bill Clinton? Who was it that couldn't tell you, they couldn't tell you who they wanted to win a particular game?
That was her.
Was it her?
Yeah.
And it was like,
I forget what.
I really like both. Politicians are so scared to sit there and say,
oh, yeah.
Hey, I like this team over this team.
Yeah.
I'm not going to vote for that person, because they really realize that there will be some people. This goes back to the whole Taylor Swift thing. There are some people that won't vote for you unless you are a fan of their team. It's not the majority, but there are people that won't vote for you. And therefore, you cannot say what team you're a fan of.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
but for
Hillary,
me, it doesn't change a thing. And for, critical thinkers, doesn't change a thing. I don't need government to intervene here.
No.
This is, it's a horrible injustice to the players, the team, the alumni. It is.
Oh, I know. It's
as blatant as it gets in terms of sports.
I got a buddy of mine who's I used to work with down at Fort Walton Beach. And his family's from Great Britain, but he's a huge Florida State fan. Huge. And I actually had a comment. I said, yeah. I think it was like, wow, because I couldn't believe that they didn't get in. Because that wouldn't happen, and that wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen in the NFL, because you have a playoff system where, a number of teams get in. You don't whittle it down to 4 teams.
Right.
And so, and then what happens is when you get into the final, 68 now in the NCAA basketball tournament, and it's like, well, it's unfair because one game can decide whether you go forward or not.
Yeah.
And it's not the best of 7. Well, you really can't have the best of 7 for 68 teams.
Yeah.
Or the teams that are in the top 10 should have, should be able to play more games because they earn their rating and they're better teams. There's no way to get this right, but government is not the solution to it. The marketplace is. It's like everybody, because of the referees this year, was after the Philadelphia Buffalo game.
Yeah.
And all my friends from Buffalo that are Bills fans, it's rigged, it's rigged, it's rigged, it's rigged. The whole NFL is rigged. And it's wrong. Right. And even people that weren't Bills fans were saying that. I'm like, well, then fine, don't watch anymore. If it's rigged, why are you watching? All of them are watching the next game. Why are you watching it if it's rigged? If it's rigged, why would you spend the time to do it? Because you really don't believe it's rigged. You're just saying that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the emotion that it brings out. Yeah, there were horrible calls that were made, but there's not a conspiracy. But everybody jumped on the conspiracy.
Sure.
That it's rigged, it's rigged. I go, well, then don't watch.
Well,
but,
I mean.
by the way, when I did that in a group text with a bunch of people, nobody responded to me. Not one.
Well, I
don't
mean,
watch.
With the Cowboys, that went on for a long time. Dez caught it. That was the thing. I think they made T-shirts out of it. Horrible calls in sports. Well, the executive director for CFP is stepping down. He's done. February technically, but this is his last playoff season. Bill Hancock. So he's going to be retired. He'll be done. There will be changes inevitably, but you're not going to bring about justice this season for Florida.
Well, with the 12-team playoff happening, it's now coming up. It's it's like it's
and it burns. I know it has to burn.
Oh yeah,
for those players, the coach, the other students of the school, the alumni. I mean, that's just something that's always going to be there. It's going to be talked about for a long, long time. It will be talked about for a long, long time. But quite unfortunately, it's not going to change as a result of Rick Scott, Governor DeSantis,
Trump. Remember, he lives in Florida now.
Right. He's going to buy the school and take it private. No,
I love it though. Let's blame Ron DeSantis because he didn't lobby hard enough.
Right. Yeah. Why not? Right. Just throw it in. But this will be one of those burns that's not going to heal.
No,
especially with that team and anybody in that discussion. By the way, there's no one except for the committee that can try and, the process is the process. And I don't know who that, the source from the committee is that told ESPN, we didn't think they were going to win the championship, which basically has kind of been the excuse because of the injury. But it's horrible for the school. It's horrible for those students. You don't think about it, but those college players, the overwhelming majority, aren't going pro. They're going on with their life. The seniors on that team, this is the end of their career, football career. They're moving on. And, there's no way to fix it. It's horrible. And they're just going to, I don't, again, but remember the steroids in baseball. We need to get to the bottom of this. No, we need more steroids.
Well, the other thing is,
everybody gets steroids.
And Florida State fans were bringing it up, the number of backup quarterbacks that have won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Remember.
I was going to say, the committee didn't know how that backup quarterback would perform in that setting.
Tom Brady replaced Drew Bledsoe to win the Super Bowl.
Remember when Tony Romo stepped in? Yeah. Now, he didn't take him to a Super Bowl. No. But his stats were good.
Doug Williams, for the Redskins. Trent Dilfer, for the Ravens. Jeff Hostetler, for when Phil Simms got hurt, winning the Super Bowl. I know about that one because it was painful because that was against the Bills.
Colin Kaepernick, who won 8, 9 Super Bowls?
Well, the biggest one. Think about this. What's the only perfect team in NFL history? 72 Miami Dolphins.
Oh, yeah.
Greasy didn't play that game. Bob Greasy didn't play. He got injured early. Earl Morrall went 11-0 to win it. But he was the backup quarterback that year. And
Right.
so the fact that they're taking out because it's a backup quarterback, it's like, well, look at all the defenses, especially in these games where the defenses, you'd come up and Florida State, great defense. So that was, they got ripped off big time. Government isn't going to solve that problem, though.
No.
But
no,
you
they're
see
not.
how all these Republicans had to jump on.
Yeah, of course.
Trump had to jump on.
Yeah.
DeSantis had to jump on. Rick Scott had to jump on. They're all from Florida. They all had to sit there and go, we got to do something. Government can't do anything. Stop it.
Not going to happen.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. Roadside inspections all begin with the driver interview, during which the officer will gather basic information from the driver and prepare the driver for the inspection. The officer will also be evaluating the driver, determining if the driver can speak English, is under the influence of anything, has an illness, or is fatigued. The officer will ask the driver for required documents, including vehicle and driver credentials, the driver's log, and shipment paperwork. The officer may also conduct a vehicle inspection. Before beginning the inspection, the officer will take steps to make sure the inspection can be done safely. These include chalking the wheels, wearing personal protective equipment, and explaining what will be required of the driver. The driver needs to pay close attention to these instructions so that the vehicle inspection can be conducted in a manner that is safe for the inspection official. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Hurley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up following the bottom of the hour, looks like some of these college presidents, after their testimony the other day, are backing off on their positions.
Interesting. All right. Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, we had mentioned Trump before. You saw 3.1 million watched the town hall.
Yeah, right. I don't know how that compares to a regular night on Fox News. I'm not sure.
It's more than they normally get.
Yeah, but I don't know how big the difference is.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So here's a headline. UPenn president attempts to walk back congressional hearing testimony rhetoric. University of Pennsylvania President Liz McGill walked back her rhetoric on whether calling for the genocide of Jews violated the Ivy League school's code of conduct on bullying or harassment after she faced backlash. There was a moment during yesterday's congressional hearing on anti-Semitism when I was asked if a call for the genocide of Jewish people on our campus could violate our policies. In that moment, I was focused on the university's longstanding policies aligned with the U.S. Constitution, which says that speech alone is not punishable. She said, I was not focused on, but I should have been on the individual fact that a call for genocide of the Jewish people is a call for some of the most terrible violence human beings can perpetuate. It's evil, plain and simple. Elise Stefanik, who was asking the questions, blasted the president's video, calling it a pathetic PR cleanup attempt. This pathetic PR cleanup attempt by Penn shockingly took over 24 hours to try to fix the moral depravity of the answers. Under oath yesterday, Stefanik wrote the post on X, and there was not even an apology. By the way, the questions were asked over and over and over again.
Yep.
No statement will fix what the world saw and heard yesterday. Well, look, we understand obviously, all of us understand that a student code of conduct is different than the government punishing you for your free speech rights.
Yep.
Code of conduct is completely separate.
Yep.
For example, I don't even know. Do we have a morals clause in our contracts?
I should hope not. What are you, a cop?
No, I just don't remember. I don't remember.
Well, I think there's a morals standard in our company handbook and the employee handbook.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, because we have a handbook. Exactly. Yeah,
and
right.
People that I know have actually read it. So I'm almost certain of it.
Well, I was looking at the contract, which sort of supersedes everything. I just because I've had contracts that have had specific moral clauses in there, which means if I say something that is outrageous, that isn't in the purview of what I normally do.
Right.
Because when I got hired, nobody ever told me, here are your parameters, but there are certain parameters that everybody knows that we follow.
Sure.
We're not going to promote something that's a lie. We're not going to defame somebody. We're not going to lie about somebody.
Right.
And so if we do that, you can do that. You can lie about somebody. That's free speech. But our company could fire us if we lied about somebody. And probably could void the contract if we were purposely, slandering somebody.
Right.
And so there's a complete difference. And you understand there's a difference between your code of conduct and free speech. So I don't buy what she was saying. The fact that it took 24 hours shows that they were trying to come up with some kind of excuse.
They were hammered by the alumni, and I have no doubt about that. I think their phones lit.
Oh, what was that one billionaire?
Yeah. Oh,
yeah. They said they should all be fired.
Right. And so when you look at that, there was going to be that response. There was no way that there wasn't. But the president here, Liz McGill, and this very weak response made it sound like it was a moment. Well, no, the back and forth went on. We played it. It was a long audio cut.
I'm going to play it now so people can hear it.
Yeah. And so this was not a moment where you can say, I'm sorry, I just kind of blanked out and was focused on something else. And no, you were asked repeatedly, which gives you, in fact, Stefanik gave her every chance to clarify and to back up in those moments. Not one moment, but series of exchanges here, and you can have no doubt about that. She had to walk it back because they got hammered by the alumni, and I'm convinced of that.
Here's part of the back and forth 2 days ago.
At MIT, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate MIT's code of conduct or rules regarding bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
If targeted at individuals, not making public statements.
Yes or no? Calling for the genocide of Jews does not constitute bullying and harassment?
I have not heard calling for the genocide for Jews on our campus.
But you've heard chants for intifada.
I've heard chants, which can be anti-Semitic depending on the context, when calling for the elimination of the Jewish people.
So those would not be according to the MIT's code of conduct or rules?
That would be investigated as harassment if pervasive and severe.
Ms. McGill, at Penn, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's rules or code of conduct? Yes or no?
If the speech turns into conduct, it can be harassment, yes.
I am asking specifically calling for the genocide of Jews. Does that constitute bullying or harassment?
If it is directed and severe or pervasive, it is harassment.
So the answer is yes.
It is a context-dependent decision, Congresswoman.
It's a context-dependent decision. That's your testimony today. Calling for the genocide of Jews is depending upon the context. That is not bullying or harassment. This is the easiest question to answer yes, Ms. McGill. So is your testimony that you will not answer yes?
If it is if the
Yes
speech
or no?
becomes if the speech becomes conduct, it can be harassment. Yes.
Conduct meaning committing the act of genocide?
God.
The speech is not harassment? This is unacceptable, Ms. McGill. I'm going to give you one more opportunity for the world to see your answer. Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's code of conduct when it comes to bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
It can be harassment.
The answer is yes.
Well, no, the answer should be yes.
Yeah.
Is what Stefanik. By the way,
Right,
Stefanik needs to learn how to use a microphone.
All of us pros
Yes.
can teach her how to.
Yeah, she's not using a microphone correctly. You're hearing all the popping and the
semblance. Testing.
For gosh sakes, we're talking about the United States government. And by the way, that's still another thing that since we had mentioned sports before and everything else.
Yeah.
Are they ever going to figure out this sound thing?
For
whether it's a president, whether it's in the White House, whether it's in the press room of sports teams. We have the technology where you can hear the question from the reporter. Why doesn't anybody use it? Now, this is a conspiracy. This is a conspiracy for me. I believe that the sports teams and the politicians don't want the public to actually hear the question.
No, I think you're right on that. One of the greatest comedians ever, Brian Regan, has, in fact, he titled one of his specials after that bit called Nunchucks and Flamethrowers. And he goes, you can never hear the questions.
Right.
And the officials are out there, like something bad happened in a community, and yeah, we don't know where the bad guys are right now. We're not sure, but we think nunchucks and flamethrowers. And that was the title of one of his stand-up specials based on that bit. And it is maddening.
That's my conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
I want to have one of my own.
Well, get a boom mic. The
Right.
university or whoever it is can get a boom mic. And it's very simple to operate.
Not university, professional sports teams.
Yeah.
The NFL with billions of dollars.
Yeah.
You can't hear the damn question.
Yeah.
Yeah, we think that would be no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do over here. I have no idea what the context of that answer is because I can't hear the question. And the same thing with the president. The same thing with Karine Jean-Pierre.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of times you can hear the question, but a lot of times you can't.
Well, that setting. Remember, it was the day that Jim Acosta got kicked out, and they were talking about legal versus illegal immigration, and Trump had been making the point repeatedly because Jim Acosta got repeated chances at questions leading up to that moment. We want people to come here. We're going to need more people to come here legally because of all the jobs we're creating. But they had a microphone, essentially, and Jim Acosta, of course, wanted to commandeer that microphone and keep it for him. It was the Jim Acosta show if he's in the room. But that should be the approach. Here's the microphone. Here you go. Pass it along. Or a boom mic operator.
Or have
something.
Or have two microphones and have one person saying,
there you
okay, you got this question, you got the next question here, whatever.
Right.
Or whoever goes to, run it over to them. But to do that is ridiculous. Where I see it the most, really, is in the congressional hallways.
Yeah.
If a speaker comes out to do something, you can never hear the questions.
Now,
or when the Republicans or Democrats as a coalition come out, you can never hear the questions.
Now, here's where I would advise the Biden administration. Here's since they're the current administration in this setting. Turn her microphone off and turn a microphone on in the media audience so you can hear them ask the question, and then hers would be because we've said for a long time she's horrible at her job. But no, I mean that's been a conundrum for a long time.
I hate to do the Seinfeld thing, but we sent a man to the moon over 50 years ago, and we can't pick up the audio from 20 feet away
Yeah.
from the person who you wish to address and answer your questions, the person asking it 20 feet away, you can't hear them. We have the technology. Fix it.
Seinfeld and Brian Regan talked about that. They have a similar bit. The whole, hey, we sent a man to the moon. And Regan's version was, imagine if we had never gone to the moon. Man, we can't get cell phones to work, but, we shouldn't be surprised because, we never put a man on the moon.
Well, every other country can use that.
Exactly. Well, it's not that great because we've never sent a man to the moon.
That's going to be my conspiracy theory. They do it on purpose because they don't want the public, whether it's a professional sports team or the government, they don't want people to be able to connect the dots of the question to what the answer is.
Right.
But when the question is, they can answer however they want.
Lee over from the Associated Press. We often play audio because sometimes you can hear actually his questions.
Matt
it's
Lee.
Not Matt Lee. When he asks questions, it's not at the White House, but it's
State Department.
State Department, and you don't for him, he's been very good about being pretty loud in that room, so you often can hear it. But it doesn't have to be that way. We have the technology. It's very simple. And I don't know why they can't do that.
I think they're doing it on purpose.
I think
they don't want the public to hear the question.
They don't want the question.
Because then you can answer it any way you want.
Right. Yeah. Nunchucks and flamethrowers.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. And you know how I know they have the technology to do a press conference, whether it's the president or whether it's members of Congress or whether it's any sports teams out there, and you can hear what we have the technology so you can hear what the reporter is actually saying, so you can sit there and go, there's the question, there's the answer. Instead of, I have no idea what the question is, there's an answer. I don't know if he's lying or not because I couldn't hear the question. How I know it is tomorrow I'm going to see Trans-Siberian Orchestra. They've got 50 mics set up across probably 50, right? At least 50 microphones and everything set up across the entire arena. They've got amps, they've got monitors, they've got lightning, they've got lasers, they've got fireworks, they've got explosions. They have a snow globe this year where the singer's inside of a snow globe, and you can hear everything.
They have nunchucks and flamethrowers.
Right, that every single singer, you can hear every single singer as clear as the day, and you're telling me that a politician has a press conference and the majority of the time you cannot hear what the reporter's question is, that they can't straighten that out so the government can effectively communicate with the people? It's a conspiracy theory.
Often when it's law enforcement that's in charge of the presser, and something's going on, they'll repeat the question for the audience.
Yeah.
Let me repeat the question. I'm waiting for Karine Jean-Pierre to do that. Let me repeat your question, Peter. You're asking, why is the president so great at being a president? And I think it's very clear. Let me make this clear that he's the greatest president of all time. And thank you, Peter, for acknowledging it. Next question.
As I've made clear many times.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood.